Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. Well, the 10 versus 25 man debate. What a week it's been. Unfortunately, I did discuss this with Ghosty and the audience during the live web show this weekend, which unfortunately was removed by Twitch. Accidentally, their video recorder did in fact bug out or some nonsense, and the web show has been lost forever, which is sad really, because we had a wonderful web show and a good transmog winner, which we have put up on the website as well. So it's on the front page if you want to see who won the transmogs. It's pretty cool. Congrats to Hawaii for that one. The 10-25 man debate. We spoke about this quite heavily on the dailies. We predicted what this could be, based entirely on the idea that Blizzard said it was going to be controversial. Before we get into what they decided to do, let's talk about what the problem is. A lot of people aren't really aware, or not. It doesn't seem as obvious to some as to why this is a problem. WoW is an MMO, massively multiplayer, which means that raids should be massive, in essence. They should be. That's part of the essence of being in an MMO, is that you get to gather up with a lot of people to accomplish various tasks, raiding, whatever it might be, PvP. And that's one of the fundamental basis that an MMO is based on, okay? That's like the thing, is having lots and lots of players together. The 40-man raiding was wonderful for a variety of reasons, not least of which the epic feeling of being alongside 39 other gangsters. That was really cool. That was a good fun thing. Unfortunately, they decided to go to 25. I still wasn't entirely clear as to why that happened. At the time, I was playing the game, as you know, from when this happened. This change was announced, we're going 25, and I was overjoyed, as were many, many people. It was pretty clear that in a 40-man, especially if you were one of the average mid-level 40-man guilds, you were carrying quite a lot of people, easily 15 plus. And going down to 25 could only be a good thing, because we can kick those 15 people. Now we've got 25 awesome players. So for a short-term idea, it's actually really good. Long-term, it's turned out it's not that good an idea. And I kind of think they wish they could go back to 40-man in some respects and just build back in that epic feeling. One of the things we did lose with 25 people is, sure, the overall skill level of a raid increased in general, but you definitely lost that momentum and that feeling, that absolute joy of being around so many other people. That was lost forever. Then, of course, we had the 25 and 10-man idea that came in Wrath of the Lich King. And I kind of didn't like this the first time it came in. In its first iteration, they were separate lockouts. So what this actually meant if you was in a 25-man guild is that you burnt through content twice as fast, which is a really terrible thing. So if you look at even something as Nax Ramus, not a great instance to begin with in Wrath of the Lich King, we would do it on 25-man, then we would go and do 10-man every week. So you were basically running every raid twice a week. And that continued up until Icecrown Citadel, which was... It was very arduous, because there's only so many times you can run the same raid without getting bored, or at least some of your players are going to be bored. There's only so many times you can do what seemingly is a good fight, and then if you're doing it twice a week, you're very quickly going to be tired of seeing that same boss. That became pretty apparent, which is why they decided to do the 25 and 10 separate lockouts, so you could only do one or the other. Now, the problem is this, and this is why 25-man is dying. A 10-man guild is the go-to choice for any new guild. There is no reason, there is absolutely no justification whatsoever to form a new 25-man guild when you can find 9 other people. You're probably going to start your guild with a couple of players already, and then go to 10 and start raiding. There is really no justification whatsoever to go 25-man, which means that essentially overnight, the beginnings of new 25-man guilds was completely killed. It was just not worthwhile, and you can imagine yourself, you want to start a new guild, you've got a couple of friends that you're playing the game with, you're going to go 10-man. You're not going to look for another 24 people if you can find 9 and accomplish the same tasks. You're just not going to do it. On top of this, there was a large difficulty in maintaining 25-man guilds. Every guild runs into trouble. 10-mans do, 25-mans do. However, in a 25-man situation, if you run into trouble of finding new recruits, especially good new recruits, and then on top of that, you just can't seem to gather the 25 people you need, the easiest solution is just to go 10. and that's happening across the board. You have a few players quit. What are you going to do? Hope for a few recruits, maybe try and last it out for a little while. All that kind of thing is good in theory, but ultimately, if it comes to it, the easiest solution is to go 10, and that's what's been happening. So we've had a complete stagnation in the growing of new 25-man guilds, and the older 25-man guilds eventually hitting some sort of trouble, which happens to every guild, and instead of being forced to persevere and find those new players and do other things, it's actually much easier to go down to 10. So that's the problem, is there's just no growth. In fact, there's a complete steady decline in the 25-man raid scene. Now, this is really dangerous. It's really dangerous for an MMO to be limited, essentially, to 10-man raiding, because an MMO should not be based on the idea of just 10 players. If we look back at vanilla, a 10-man raid was literally what you would do as what is equivalent now of a 5-man dungeon. You would go to places like Stratholme as 10-man, UBRS would be 15-man, and other things like that. Scholomance as well, it's 10-man raiding. You would go and do that as just one of your normal 5-mans equivalent now. So Blizzard recognises this is going to be a long-term issue if they don't fix something. In fact, the majority of all raiding now is done 10-man, especially if we discount LFR, which isn't really raiding by any means. And so I can see that we're probably now in a position where encounters are designed as 10-man, which is quite an excessive dynamic shift, whereas previously raids were designed around the 25-man player base. Now they must be designed around the 10-man. That is the financial and the best way to go about it, and then scale them up to 25-man. Which is why we're finding a lot of ideas of 25-man being easier, as they're generally encounters must be based around a 10-man idea. I think that's pretty safe to say that is one of the design elements going into it. I would be truly surprised if Blizzard was still basing all content on 25, given the complete overwhelming shift towards 10-man. So Blizzard wants to repair this. They don't want to see the raiding go down to 25-man. It kind of to 10-man. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of being an MMO if your maximum raid content is based around just 10 players, especially when you have sort of 11 million players in the player base. You want to see some 25-mans, or you want to see some larger raids going on, because that is part of the fun of playing an MMO. An MMO is not a single player by any means. An MMO is designed to be played with a hell of a lot of people. 10 people is not a hell of a lot of people. It's more like an Xbox game. So how do we fix this? Blizzard said they had an idea to fix it, and it was going to be controversial, which is why we discussed many ideas. One of the things we discounted was the idea of an item level shift. 25-man and 10-man has been based entirely for the last couple of years about being completely balanced. Now, we know that technically that can never be achieved, but certainly creating different item levels is going to cause a power shift towards one or the other. So we discounted the idea instantly of there being some sort of item level shift. I'm going to go ahead and say right now that the Thunderforged item idea that's coming in 5.2 isn't the original intention. I don't think this is controversial at all, and in fact I've had the good grace, considering I've been off for a few days for personal reasons, I've had the good grace that I don't often have to actually see the community feedback. And there isn't really any at all. They just don't give a shit. This whole idea is complete fluff to the majority of the player base. So they're going to introduce these Thunderforged items, which is going to create 5 tiers of items across a single raiding section. That's pretty insane when you think about it. It's not difficult to implement by any means. They just set the item level standards and implement them either way. So this isn't a lot of work for Blizzard to do. But it just dilutes the pool a lot, to the point where items kind of become more underwhelming than they are now. So we'll have LFR items, normal Thunderforged items, heroic items, and then heroic Thunderforged items. They say that the drop chance of the Thunderforged items is going to be slightly in favour of the 25-mans. So that over a few weeks, a 25-man guild should have a generally higher item level than a 10-man. This is one of the key points about it being underwhelming. This is not a move that's going to force people to go 25-man. There is a chance. Now, the randomness of this is what's really drawing it back, in my opinion. I'm kind of convinced in one way that items being a sole purpose to raiding is a dying idea in World of Warcraft. I think the game's been out for so long and we've had that many item resets, which happens quite a lot. People actually expect item resets to occur. And the catch-up mechanics that we're so used to is that getting the cutting-edge gear is actually not that much of an incentive anymore. Compared to when the item levels were massively different, if we look at the Burning Crusade and Vanilla, and to a small point Wrath of the Lich King, which is when the catch-up system really started to take hold, we can see that people started to get less interested in certain items, unless the item was overwhelmingly good. A good instance would be the Deathbringer's Will from Icecrown Citadel that could only drop in the 25-man mode. Now, people were very much incentivized, especially if you could use that trinket, to go and see that content, to find a way into it, and go and get that trinket, because that trinket was just incredibly powerful. The Dislodge Foreign Object is a similar sort of idea for casters. This doesn't work that way, because the items are the same. They are the same item. They are all chest piece of the bear looking for raid, chest piece of the bear normal, chest piece of the bear normal Thunderforged, and they will not have different graphics. One thing about Deathbringer's Will is that it turned you into a giant Tonka. Therefore, it was extremely noticeable that someone had a Deathbringer's Will, and people feel good about having noticeable differences in gear. The Thunderforged items are not going to carry that weight. In fact, you will only be able to tell if someone is wearing Thunderforged items by mousing over them, inspecting them, and then looking at their items individually to see if it has the Thunderforged tag. Therefore, that incentive is missing. The visual incentive is missing, especially in a day where transmogging items and looking cool actually overwhelms items. People want certain items so they can change them into something that looks awesome. If Thunderforged items looked awesome, then maybe there would be a bit more of an incentive to go and get these things, but that's not the case. The idea that they drop in normal 10-man, they drop in 10 and 25, again, is not an incentive. They drop in both 10 and 25, and if randomness goes in your favour, then you will actually have 10-mans with a much larger pool of Thunderforged items than a 25. This is still a random chance. Despite that chance being higher in a 25, it's not hard to imagine, given the way Elder coins work, is that we will see that a lot of 10-mans actually have much more Thunderforged items than the 25-mans do. Therefore, there is no incentive to rely on being 25-man in order to increase this item level. It's just not going to work that way. Sometimes it'll work. There's no doubt that with a higher drop chance, you will see more Thunderforged items in 25, but there will also be those 10-man guilds who are like, well, randomness could go in our favour, and we can still get these items anyway. And do we really care? One of the big points Blizzard has put forward about this is that when you are stuck on a boss, let's say it's boss 6, and you've cleared 1 to 5, and your raid is gear capped, that going back through bosses 1 to 5 will still give you the option of getting Thunderforged items and still increasing your item level of your raid. That is an extremely, extremely rare situation. I have very, very rarely seen a whole raid, I'm talking every single raid player, gear capped and stuck on a boss that has stayed together. I very rarely see that. I'm sure there's somebody out there who has experienced that. I personally have very, very, very rarely, if ever heard of a guild that has managed to gear up its entire raid in best in slot possible items that they can get and then be stuck on a boss. So I do not see that as a legitimate reason either. I just don't see it. I don't think it's cool. I don't think it works. I think it's a bit of a fluffy answer, to be honest with you. The next part that bothers me about this is that, in essence, they've also said that if a boss can drop 13 possible items, is that there are also 13 possible Thunderforged items that go along with that. On top of that, they can also be achieved by the coin rolls. Now, this has just doubled the RNG of you getting loot. In fact, we might have a shift towards people being pissed off that they are rolling their coins, their hard-earned coins from doing more and more dailies, and getting the normal version of an item instead of the Thunderforged version, which is kind of annoying. Not only that, but where previously we had a 1 in 13 chance of getting our sword, our chest piece, our belt, our boots, whatever it might be, we now actually have a 1 in 26 chance of getting the best item we can get. One thing players really, really dislike is the RNG of loot drops. Despite the inclusion of the Elder Coins, which does statistically increase your chance of getting your items, there's no doubt about that, people still hate randomness. Randomness is very unforgiving. We can have a boss, and I'm sure many of you have encountered it, who will not drop your belt, refuses to drop your belt, and now you're using your coins on it, and your coin just yields gold upon gold upon gold week after week. Now imagine that you're actually getting the normal belt. You're actually going to be now disappointed in getting the normal version because the Thunderforged version exists. It's out there. Even worse is that you have the normal version and you roll your coin and you're still getting the normal version and not a Thunderforged version. This doubling of the randomness of the loot tables is really detrimental. I don't think players are going to be happy with this at all. Really happy with this. Which is again why I go back to, this is not a controversial decision. In fact, the controversy is so minor that I do not believe that this was the initial idea of how to boost 25-mans. I seriously doubt that the Thunderforged idea is the way they were going to go, because there is no controversy in this at all. The only controversy is now we have more possible loot to get. That's really annoying. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like having a 1 in 26 chance. In fact, most of the replies that I've managed to browse across the WoW forums and other websites are, meh. Well, this isn't going to help. And it's not. This is not going to promote 25-man guild raiding at all, really. I can't see how it would. These items still drop in the 10-man. If RNG is in your favour, which occasionally it is, then you'll still get your Thunderforged items as quickly as the 25-mans, and you're not going to... And is it worth putting together an extra 20-odd people, or finding more and more guilds to merge with in order for a slightly increased chance of getting Thunderforged items? No, it's not. It really isn't. What needs to stop is how easy it is to put a 10-man together, and as 10-man to stop being the default fallback of where to go with your raiding. So ultimately, we came to one of the decisions on the web show, and the idea that I had is it too late for this? Is it too late to fix it? Is there a way that we can band-aid fix it and push people back into 25-mans? I don't think there is. I really do not think there is a way to band-aid fix this situation. I don't think a small change is going to do it. I really do not. I don't think we could possibly see a correct change or a fully working change until the next expansion, where we can give players months to prepare. The change I would like to see is literally going back to purely 25-man and forcing the player base back into that environment and still providing good 10-man content like we had in the Burning Crusade. Again, not rose-tinted goggles by any means, but we had the 25-man set raiding. If you wanted to raid, it was in a 25-man. Ultimately, with a lot more 25-mans, it's very much easier to find a guild. That is a fact. 10-mans are not that easy to find without just finding new guilds that don't achieve much of anything. With 25-mans, you tend to find a much more sturdier player base and a much greater raiding environment. And we still had things like Karazhan, which was one of the best, if not the best, raid content I have seen to this day. I still persist that it beats the likes of Ulduar. I do. Karazhan was the only raid instance that I know of that I raided every single week, although I didn't need anything, just for fun, because it was a wonderful instance. We can still have these 10-man raids that are side raids to our 25-mans. Hopefully a lesson will be learned here. If Blizzard truly believes that this was going to be a controversial thing and create problems and the people weren't going to be happy, hopefully they can gauge a response now on a few things, such as 1, items, unless they are spectacular and in some way visually different, are not a great incentive anymore towards the players of World of Warcraft. The game has been out for too long. We've had so many item resets that people care less and less about items. Sure, there is a good population of people who only care about their item level and only care about having the best gear out there. Fair play to you. But a lot of the new players, and there are a lot of new players, don't underestimate exactly how many new players join this game, are only interested really in getting up to the point of LFR and are quite happy to stay there. They're quite happy to stay there in LFR. They don't really care about as having never experienced what it's like to raid with 25 people, or especially 39 other people, then there's not much interest. As far as raiding is concerned to those new players, raiding is about getting in there, trying not to die, and killing the boss as fast as possible and collecting your loot and getting out and going about your dailies. That is generally what a vast majority of the player base is doing now. The numbers back that up, is that they are very, very happy to be in LFR. If we look at 70% of raiding guilds, they're still in normal mode. That's the facts. 70% of all raiding guilds are in normal modes and not doing any of the heroic content at all. So if we do want to save this and keep WoW as an MMO, a massively multiplayer game, we kind of need to force people back into the 25-man ideal. That is the only way to do that, and that is to drop 10-man. Ultimately, to drop 10-man. I still persist that in the next expansion we will go 15-man regardless. I think that is where they're going to go. I'm not entirely happy with that decision. 15-man is not epic. Ultimately, I would love to see us go back to 40-man, even if that meant content was balanced around the idea of only 25 people being good and 15 carried. It's just a much better atmosphere, it's a lot more fun, and in general it's just better for an MMO to be on that kind of scale. 10-man is no scale, it's no scale whatsoever, and I don't have any issue with 10-man guilds. I do not blame 10-man guilds. I have nothing against 10-man guilds. It is the obvious choice to go for in all of these situations. Need a new guild? Let's make a 10-man. Are you a 25-man who can't find players? Let's go down to 10. It's the obvious and simple solution, and that is why this has occurred. Players of games will always look for the easiest way of achieving their goals, and if they want to raid, 10-man is the answer. Unfortunately, in terms of longevity of the game, and keeping up with the spirits of being an MMO, which we want to do, then we need to get out of that habit. And it's only going to be through drastic changes and not with something like this. The only other way they could band-aid fix it and really cause upset was to change the loot tables entirely from 10 to 25, like we saw in Ice Crown. Even then, 25-mans was still dying, but still, you throw in a couple of little gems, like the Deathbringer's Will, like the Dislodged Foreign Object, you're going to see a lot more 25-mans getting their shit together to go and raid. Alright, ballers, you have a great day, and I'll see you again.